The House of Representatives is already getting active. Yesterday, they passed a ban on men who say they are women from participating in women's sports. The bill passed 218 to 206. All Republicans present voted yes. Only two Democrats voted yes. And Democrats cannot shake the woke. They cannot. It is amazing. Okay, this is a death knell for Democratic electoral prospects. Their continued maintenance of the idea that boys can be girls, girls can be boys, and men should compete against women while pretending to be women is a horrifyingly bad political decision. And yet they still continue to trot out absolute imbeciles like Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez to make the case. Here yesterday was Alexandra Ocasio-Cortez explaining that it's terribly sexist not to allow boys to compete with girls.
I know who loves this bill. Yes, bigoted folks love this bill. Assaulters love this bill. But also, CEOs love this bill. Because Los Angeles is on fire right now. And this is the number one priority this majority has. Thank you, and I yield back.
CEOs love this bill because of the fire? Like, well, what is she even jabbering about? But they are so attached to their woke principles, they cannot let it go. Meanwhile, Speaker Johnson, again, passed his first test with flying colors, somehow cobbling together enough of the House Republican majority to be re-enshrined as Speaker of the House with the very important support of President Trump. He said, listen, this is pretty obvious. Protecting women in sports is commonsensical.
It's an executive branch function. I mean, it is a big issue. I mean, probably the most famous ad of the campaign cycle was the one that the Trump administration ran on this issue, and it resonates with the American people. Congressman Stubbe mentioned it's in the opinion polls. This is a 80-90% issue or more, depending on which poll you look at, because, again, it comports with common sense. It should not be a partisan issue. We should have every single member of Congress united on this. And I would challenge all of you to go ask the questions of the Democrats who voted against it, how in the world they can justify that, because I don't understand the argument at all.
And that, of course, is exactly correct. But common sense left the Democratic Party long ago. Meanwhile, the situation in California continues to be quite dire. It is not as though these fires are under control. The fires are still raging out of control. The winds are picking up once again. The wildfire map continues to be extraordinarily large. The Palisades fire has been burning for 8 days. It is still only 18% contained. It has burned almost 24,000 acres, and the winds are expected to pick up today as well. The Eaton fire, which has burned 14,000 acres, is only 35% contained as well. It seems as though the most populated areas have basically been prevented from being eaten by the fire, particularly the Palisades fire. And it looks like the map is moving more out to the west than it is to the east at this point. So the map has not moved more toward Bel Air or Brentwood, for example, but it is moving out more toward the Ventura area, toward Malibu West and such. Meanwhile, the person with the priorities is Gavin Newsom, the governor of California. It is truly incredible how unbelievably incompetent they are and how wedded they are to their left-wing ideals. So let's say that your house burned down in this fire. God forbid, it's really terrible. Let's say that your house burned down in the fire, and you're left with the charred remnants of your old family home in an area that's not going to be livable for a while, because after a wildfire hits an urban area, after it burns down a bunch of homes, it's not as though the rebuilding takes place immediately. There's toxic waste there. There's serious problems in these areas. And let's say a developer comes to you and says, listen, you didn't have fire insurance because the state of California made it nearly impossible for you to buy affordable fire insurance. It's going to be a long time till you see a check. I'll give you $2 million today for your property. According to Gavin Newsom, that developer is a leech, cruel, and must be stopped. That sort of free market activity, that can't be allowed. They're bringing you an unsolicited... Now, listen, you could say no to that offer, but the fact that they are even making an offer shows how greedy and terrible they are. Here is Gavin Newsom speaking up against free markets after his complete botchery of this fire.
I'm here in Altadena. I just signed an executive order with community leaders to deal with the issue that is becoming a bigger and bigger issue every day. And that's land developers that are engaging in predatory efforts to make unsolicited offers for properties at significantly below market value. This predatory behavior is disgusting in the best of times. And of course, here in the midst of this tragedy at scale, it's disgraceful. So we're going to hold those folks accountable. I'm very grateful for the leadership here in the community that promoted this approach, and this executive order is a reflection of their direction and their commitment to preserving the unique character of this community for generations to come.
Totally psychotic. I'm sorry, totally psychotic. So somebody comes to you and they offer you money, and Gavin Newsom's response is, I'm going to prosecute that money. You could just say no. What he's really attempting to do is stop people from selling. He's not stopping people from buying. He's stopping people from selling. You know what stops people from buying? A seller saying no. You know what stops a seller from selling? Only the government. Unbelievable. Going online unprotected is like leaving your door unlocked when you leave your house. Maybe you trust some of your neighbors, but what about the creepy guy down the block? What about delivery drivers and random strangers? You trust everybody? With ExpressVPN, you can stay safe online without having to trust any random strangers. Here's the thing. Your internet service provider can see every single website you visit. And no, switching to incognito mode doesn't do the trick to keep your information private or secure. Unfortunately, in the United States, they can legally sell that information about all the websites you visit to advertisers. That's why I always use ExpressVPN. It reroutes all your traffic through secure encrypted servers so your ISP can't track your browsing history. I use ExpressVPN every day, especially when I'm working on the go or traveling. Just open the app, one click, I know my data is now protected. It works on all my devices seamlessly, phone, laptop, tablet, everything, so it's no surprise it's rated #1 by both CNET and The Verge. Protect your online privacy today. Visit expressvpn.com/Ben. That's expressvpn.com/Ben. You can get an extra 4 months for free. expressvpn.com/Ben to get started. Protect yourself the way I do. expressvpn.com/Ben. Meanwhile, the embattled Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, she was asked why she was in Africa in the first place. She'd actually pledged earlier in her term that she would not do any foreign travel. Of course, that wasn't true. So here she was ignoring that question.
Looking back, would you have taken that trip overseas?
You know, I am going to focus today
but please,
on what we know.
Wow. Well, I mean, I'm convinced. Well, it wouldn't be a full-scale tragedy without Jimmy Kimmel tearing up on air, because this is what you want from your late-night comedians, is lectures about politics and tearing up, which is what Jimmy Kimmel has become famous for. He's no longer famous for making jokes. It is truly impressive how in our culture-centric universe, people like Jimmy Kimmel, who was once famous for doing a show with Adam Carolla in which women bounced up and down on trampolines so that their breasts would jiggle, how he has now become the moral clarion for the left on late-night television. Here you go, Jimmy Kimmel.
I think I speak for all of us when I say it has been a sickening, shocking, awful experience, but has also been, in a lot of ways, a beautiful experience because once again, we see our fellow men and women coming together to support each other. People who lost their own homes were out volunteering in parking lots, helping others who lost theirs. And tonight, I don't want to get into all the vile and irresponsible and stupid things our alleged future president and his gaggle of scumbags chose to say during our darkest and most terrifying hour. The fact that they chose to attack our firefighters, who apparently aren't white enough to be out there risking their lives on our behalf, it's disgusting, but it's not surprising.
They weren't attacking the firefighters. They were attacking the entire system that allowed this to happen, including the underfunding of the fire department for paying gigantic pensions and salaries negotiated by unions, which prevented the staffing up of the fire department. Also, yeah, it seems to me that if your top priority is hiring people who literally say that it's not their job to pull men out of burning buildings because the men shouldn't have been there in the first place, that seems like that should be a question that should be asked. I mean, anytime, let alone in the middle of the most devastating wildfire in American history. So thanks to Jimmy Kimmel for, as always, his moral clarity. Are you tired of the lies and the twists of the mainstream media talking points? Yeah, me too. Join me in my newest series, Fact, where I dismantle and bring truth to this tiring mainstream agenda.